There is jaw-dropping new reporting in the New York Times today detailing what appears to be a culture of corruption and incompetence surrounding what some Trump officials did and did not do with expensive gifts from and for foreign leaders. It goes farther than that. Quote, the State Department's Inspector General is investigating allegations that Trump's political appointees walked off with gift bags worth thousands of dollars that were meant for foreign leaders at the Group of Seven summit planned for Camp David in 2020, which was canceled because of the coronavirus pandemic. The bags contain dozens of items purchased with government funds, including leather portfolios, pewter trays, and marble trinket boxes emblazoned with the presidential seal or the signatures of Trump and Melania. Joining our conversation, the reporter on that new reporting, Mike Schmidt. Ben Rhodes is back. Mike, tell us about the Saudi furs. That seems to be some of the most salacious and juicy reporting in here.
So when Donald Trump went to Saudi Arabia in May of 2017, if you remember, there was that thing with the orb. They really lavished Trump with gifts, at least they appeared to. When they got back, a White House lawyer determined that one or two or three of the gifts might violate the Endangered Species Act because it said it was came from a white tiger and it came from cheetah fur. And if you are in possession of items like that, you're violating the law. But the Trump White House held on to these items for 3.5 more years. They showed up at the General Services Administration on the last day of the Trump administration. In response to our questions, U.S. Fish and Wildlife took possession of them over the summer because they're the folks that deal with endangered species, products. And when Fish and Wildlife looked at these furs and examined them and tested them, they determined that they had been dyed to look like white tigers and cheetahs, and they were fakes.
Ben, I know you write about your Saudi trip in your book. I want to read you some more of Mike's reporting about this Saudi trip. State Department disclosed a list of 82 gifts from the Saudis to Trump administration officials on the May 2017 trip in response to a Freedom of Information Act request filed shortly after Trump returned home. The gifts range from ordinary ones like sandals and scarves to expensive ones like these furs Mike's talking about and daggers. 9 of the most expensive presents, the 3 furs, 3 swords, and 3 daggers, were sent to the White House gift unit to be assessed and appraised, but never appeared on any of the Trump State Department's legally required annual filings for foreign gifts, according to a review of government documents. As Mike is saying, it wasn't until January 19, 2021 that they ended up in the right place. I worked in the White House. You worked in administration. You worked in a White House. You cannot have a reporter like Mike buy you a soda. You pay for everything. Foreign gifts are a higher level experience. Talk about yours.
Well, Nicole, my first trip to Saudi Arabia in 2009, I was traveling with President Obama, and we were staying at a compound that belonged to then King Abdullah. And when I got to my room, there was a suitcase right inside the door. And I opened the suitcase, and it was full of jewels, full of different kind of jewelry, precious stones. And I was new to government, and I thought, oh, my gosh, are these people trying to, bribe me, gain advantage on me? Then I find that every single member of our traveling party had gotten a similar suitcase full of jewels. And the Obamas, of course, was the most lavish. And you immediately learn, oh, you don't even touch those. They just get taken by the State Department protocol people who are traveling. And that was the routine you get accustomed to in government, whether it's President Obama on down. You get gifts where you go, and you never keep those gifts for a moment. You just hand those to the protocol people, and they just deal with it, and it gets accounted. And then there's an option for you to buy the gifts at the price that they cost, but nobody ever takes that option. I think a lot of us were suspicious about whether the Trump people were going to follow those rules, particularly when you have people like the Saudis who like to lavish gifts on visitors. And sometimes those can be very public displays of gifts. But I don't know what happens when Jared Kushner goes over to see Mohammed bin Salman for a kind of private meeting. I think there's probably a lot we don't know here.
Mike, I mean, speak to that. What do we still not know? And to Ben's point, were there suitcases of jewels given to the Trumps that we don't know about? Did they get different kinds of gifts? Were they fur people and the Saudis knew that? Or explain who gets what.
Well, the problem, as we write about in the story, is that the Trump administration did not follow a lot of the rules, laws, and procedures around gifts. And these are things that are designed to ensure that there's not a perception of impropriety, that things look like they're done above board. And the problem that's sort of the heart of this is the fact that the Trump administration never properly filed these gifts and disclosed who got them, how much they were worth, and what was done with them. So because of that, I cannot answer your question about the depth and breadth of the gifts that they received, because they didn't follow the rules. They didn't follow the basics of government. And I understand that compared to a lot of other things, most people may think this is not a big deal and such, but these are sort of the basic rudimentary parts of government that we often do not pay a lot of attention to, that under the Trump administration, things that were on autopilot in previous administrations went off the rails.
I think missing gifts from foreign leaders is pretty essential to who was pulling the strings, Ben Rhodes. What is the bigger scandal for the Saudis, that the furs may or may not have been real, or that Trump had them somewhere undisclosed for 3 years and then turned them over?
I mean, for the Saudis, it's probably that they may or may not be real. These are people that are sitting on $1 trillion sovereign wealth fund. I mean, and to Mike's point, I think the reason this is actually a big deal is it's yet another reminder that norms in particular are not self-executing.
Right.
And if you have people that just ignore the norms, then it opens the door wide open to all manner of corruption. If they're not accounting for the fake tiger furs, do you think that they're accounting for other ways in which foreign governments may have lavished resources on them? What happened on trips that weren't as high profile as a presidential trip? Because what's at stake really is the integrity of American government and American foreign policy, and whether or not it's bought and paid for by people that have good gifts, whether they're tacky or not, or whether they're illegal or not here,
It's crazy, crazy, crazy piece of reporting. Mike Schmidt and Ben Rhodes, thank you so much for spending some time with us on it. The next